If you're experiencing some level of restlessness, even though, let's say, there is nothing inherently wrong with your life, it's just that strange restlessness that seems to have no real cause. That is a very specific situation that I want to address because it's something that I have been experiencing for the past few years. And I want to share with you what really helps me in these kinds of situations and how you can do the same so you can experience more inner peace, because basically that's what we're all looking for. It's peace. So restlessness mostly comes from excessive thinking, from overthinking. And where does that thinking come from? Most of the time, it comes from desires, from fears, and worries. That's what I've discovered. So you cannot stop yourself from desiring something. That's something I've discovered also. You cannot stop wanting the things that you want. But what you can do is just find the space between the thoughts. And that's a very widely spread spiritual practice that really does help. It's when you catch yourself that you're in your head again, you're thinking excessively. Find the the nothing. It's not really nothingness. Find the place within the between the thoughts. Find the space between the thoughts. Or other way you can do it is find the place where thoughts happen. They happen somewhere here. Find that space, focus on that, and focus on the space where there are no thoughts. When thoughts happen, there is always a space between each thought. It's not like non-stop, but there is a space between these thoughts. Focus your attention there and stay in that space. If you've never recognized that space between the thoughts, what I recommend is start practicing meditation. Now, I know meditation is not for everyone. You don't really need meditation to find the space between the thoughts and rest there, but it definitely helps to have a meditation practice. When I sit down to meditate, first I start with deep breathing through the stomach, and I breathe and then hold my breath until I settle down and I become more calm. Then I start resting in the space between the thoughts, which this space is the consciousness or the awareness in which thoughts happen. So this restlessness is actually obscuring inner peace, because inner peace is not something you get by adding more. It's not something you get somehow. Rather, inner peace is something that you return back to. What I mean is that if you stop buying into the thoughts that keep popping up in your mind, and you actually don't pay attention to them, and you rest in the space between the thoughts, what you see is that inner peace becomes automatic. That's the only thing that can happen when you rest between the thoughts. So do that practice when you feel restless and see how powerful it is. Because Again, you cannot stop yourself from wanting the things you want. This means you have certain desires. You cannot delete them. But what you can do is stop paying attention to them so badly all the time. So desires may be there, they may cause some thoughts, some excessive thinking or overthinking, but you don't buy into it, you don't pay attention to the thoughts because thoughts come and they demand your attention. So you don't want to feed them your attention. Find that space between the thoughts and stay there. That is the entire practice. And I'm sure you've probably come across this practice, but it's a good reminder for you to see someone, which is me, who is going through similar things as you and every single person on this path. And actually, I can share with you that this really helps. So you can apply it, you can practice it in your own life. What happens is when you rest in the space between the thoughts, you automatically rest in the present moment because the space between the thoughts, that is pure awareness there with no content, which the content of consciousness is thoughts, emotions, and everything that happens within you. That is the content of the consciousness or the awareness. What you want to focus on is the consciousness itself, it's the awareness itself, the awareness between the thoughts. So you want to focus there and keep your attention there. And it's not like you push yourself to do it. It's more of a you rest there. You return back to that space between the thoughts. And that is extremely, extremely helpful when you feel restlessness. Now, I'm not saying that you will never feel restless again, but every time you feel restless, remind yourself to rest in the space between the thoughts. If we look closer to the word restlessness, it means restlessness, which means there is no rest there. So what you want to do is you want to rest. And where do you rest? In the space between the thoughts. That's the only way I have found to cure that restlessness. And it's something, it's a practice that you continuously do. Maybe somewhere along the path, you may be able to sustain that pure awareness as your baseline, as your main way of being. But it requires practice. It requires for you to keep returning to the space between the thoughts. And this in itself is the entire practice. So try it out and see how does it feel. And it may feel strange at first. There may it may feel unfamiliar. You may experience even some fear because you're so used to, not you specifically, but many people are used to identifying with their thoughts and believing in their thoughts 100%. In fact, many people cannot make a difference between awareness, which is perceiving the thoughts, and the thoughts themselves. So many people cannot make that difference. So they're like merged with their thoughts and they believe their thoughts. Now, you can never truly separate yourself from thoughts, but what you can do is actually find that space between the thoughts and rest there. And that automatically because you're not buying into what the thoughts are saying, you automatically become more peaceful. Automatically, inner peace, you find it there. It's nowhere else to be found. Truly, it's only in that space between the thoughts. And I experience complete and full undisturbed inner peace, like the complete inner peace you can imagine. I experience that while I'm in deep meditation, and that's why I always recommend meditation. If you struggle to find that space between the thoughts, which is really not that hard to find, you just observe your thoughts and see there is a moment where there is no thought. Rest there, be there, and don't grab onto another thought. And practicing meditation will allow you to go deeper into that space between the thoughts. And the deeper you can go there, the more inner peace you will feel. That's why sitting down, closing your eyes, shutting off everything, and just going within, in that space between the thoughts, and going deeper within that space, and resting there, it shouldn't be something that you do with willpower. It's just you point awareness back to itself. Instead of your awareness being focused on the content, which is thoughts, emotions, feelings, and so on, everything that happens internally, instead of awareness being focused at that, you turn awareness back to itself. That's what's essentially that practice. You can do that with your eyes open, but it's way easier if you close your eyes and do it in a meditation, so that you get at least a taste of what inner peace feels like, of because that's the one and only way I found to experience inner peace. And I know it works because I experience it every day. I meditate. Now, there will be, of course, meditations where you are not able to go deep within that awareness that you are, and that's perfectly fine. Some days meditation will be harder, other days it will flow naturally and easy, and that's okay. That's part of the practice. But nevertheless, always turn awareness back to itself, not on the contents that awareness is perceiving. That in itself is the entire practice. The more you can rest, because it's really resting in that space between the thoughts, the more you feel calm, the more you feel balanced, the more stability you will have. And inner peace is not going to be something you've heard of, it's going to be something you actually experience. Now, it's not realistic to say that you will have inner peace like 100% of the time, because the level of the peace will change. But still, you have a practice that brings you back in that space between the thoughts and allows you to touch again inner peace. And then the entire practice becomes that you start living in that state, that you no longer get stuck in mental loops, you no longer buy into thinking. Instead, you stay as awareness. That's what many spiritual teachers are still teaching nowadays. And this is by far one of the most powerful spiritual practices I have found, and by far one of the most simplest practices. It's very simple. There are thoughts and there is space between the thoughts. Don't make it into something mental, you have to figure it out. Just here. There is awareness here, and then the thoughts come, but again, there is still awareness. Focus on the awareness, not on the thoughts. Don't go with the thoughts. And different thoughts may come because the mind knows you very well. It knows exactly what thoughts are attractive to you, and it will come up with these, like things you need to worry about, things you need to fear, uh, goals, dreams you want to achieve, whatever it is. The mind knows you very well because basically you're not separate from the mind. It's also who you are. Not really, but it's part of who you are, let's call it like that. So you cannot really separate yourself from the mind. What you can do is not pay attention to the mind so much and be here, be as that awareness, rest there. And you can do that by shutting off all distractions, doing it for a few minutes, but then slowly try to integrate it into everything you're doing. I'm not saying that you should never think, because some things require thinking. And if there is practical use of thinking, which means you need to plan something. Let's say you have a business you need to run, you need to plan something, or you want to go on a trip, you need to plan how the trip will go, whatever it is. Yeah, you can definitely use the mind for that. But then once you no longer need the mind, return back to the space between the thoughts. Make that your primary practice, and inner peace will be as real as everything you see around you. It will be even more real. And once you go deeper within that space between the thoughts in meditation with your eyes closed, you will experience the complete inner peace that I'm talking about. And complete inner peace, it's also connected to total acceptance, which means that you totally accept everything. You don't fight anything. The total acceptance is another key to experiencing sustained inner peace, because resting in the space between the thoughts is a very good practice, but you also need to have total acceptance of reality the way it is right here, right now, and total acceptance of everything. These two, they're like siblings, they go together. So you want both. But how do we practice total acceptance? You just be present and accept the present moment, because you cannot accept the future because the future doesn't exist. You cannot really accept the past. You can make peace with it, but the only thing you can truly have total acceptance of is the present moment. And I'm trying to point to something. You can have total acceptance of the past, of course, but what I'm trying to point at is total acceptance of this moment right here, right now. Accept it fully. Whatever your living situation is, whatever your circumstances are, whatever you're experiencing internally, have total acceptance for that. Don't fight any of it. Let it be. Accept it, and then rest in the space between the thoughts. That will drastically change how you experience reality, and it will lead you to a lasting state of calmness and peace. So try it out. Don't just dismiss it. Really try it out and put it to the test and see if it's true or not. Don't just believe anyone who tells you these things. Don't believe anyone telling you anything. Test everything out. If you don't test things, you are relying on belief about things. And belief, it's just because you believe something doesn't mean it's true. Just because, let's say, 1 million people believe in something still doesn't make it true. Even if the entire world believed in something, that doesn't equal that the thing is true. What's true is actually you saying for yourself what works and what doesn't. That's the only truth there is. It's you experiencing it. Once you experience it, no one can tell you otherwise. No one can tell you inner peace is not real. You cannot have peace in this life. And let's say, whatever they're trying to tell you, if you have experienced it, no one can convince you otherwise. And it's a truth, 100%. Why? Because you have direct experience with it. There is no truth in beliefs. It's not that a belief cannot be true. It can be true, but still, if you don't have direct experience with it, don't believe it's true, because you don't know. Many people talk nonsense, even in the spiritual circles. They are believing in ideas that they have no direct experience with. So you want, I don't have anything against that. All I want to say is that we need direct experience with things. When you have direct experience, there is nothing in this world that can convince you that this direct experience is a belief, because you know it's not a belief, it's an experience. So it's the same with inner peace, it's the same with the space between the thoughts, it's the same with the ability to accept reality as it is right here, right now, accepting the present moment the way it is. And once you experience it, and I'm sure you have experienced it to some level, sometimes, even if it's for a few seconds or a few minutes, we've all had these moments where everything seems to be okay. Like, yes, our life on the surface doesn't seem perfect, but there is kind of a feeling of things are okay. So how do we make that our baseline? How do we make that our permanent state of being? It's not by you trying to get there, it's by these practices that I've just shared with you. Rest in the space between the thoughts and have total acceptance of the present moment the way it is right here, right now. And if you like to, you can also take these two into your meditation practice, practice them there, and you just go deeper within them, and then it's much easier to integrate them into your everyday life. So yeah, that's it for today. Leave any questions if you have in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. I wish you a wonderful day. Bye bye.